Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater. And one of the crazier stories to kind of be tossed around over the course of the last couple of years has been who the hell's going to direct the Boba Fett movie? At first, obviously, it was Josh Trank. Back in 2015, he exited the project, and people thought out there that really it was because he had been fired, that they had said no after everything that happened with Fantastic Four, that really Josh Trank had just been outed, excised from Hollywood, completely banished out to the forsaken land of Glendale, and then left alone. But as we're finding out now, that wasn't the case, and it took 5 years to get the true story. And I gotta say that the true story is kind of bittersweet and sad, because he actually talks about the real reason why he left the project. So it says here, after Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm in 2012, the House of Mouse was keen to capitalize on its ownership of the Star Wars franchise, not only with the new series of sequel films, but also with standalone flicks meant to expand on the lore and characters of the galaxy far, far away. The eventual result, the release of 5 Star Wars movies in as many years, a schedule that former Disney CEO Bob Iger would later admit was too ambitious and threatened to turn off fans. Actually, that's a complete load of crap. That's Iger just saving face. If the movies were good, no one would care. We live through 3 Marvel movies a year, 1 or 2 DC movies a year. We're fine, provided it's good. They should have leaned into it, but that's a whole argument for a whole other day. Now, along with the sequel trilogy, 2 of those standalone films made it to screens: 2016's Rogue One and Star Wars or Solo: A Star Wars Story, which wasn't as well received and underperformed severely. Before it became apparent that hitting fans with at least 1 Star Wars movie per year wasn't the way to hold their interest, there were plans for even more of these standalones. Among them was a solo vehicle for the iconic bounty hunter of Boba Fett, which Josh Trank was meant to direct. And after Chronicle, I was really excited to see him take on Boba Fett. I loved Chronicle. It was such a well done movie, and Josh Trank did a great job, but it's possible that I agree with him actually here that it does feel like it was a bit more than he could handle. Now, it does go on here to talk a bit more about that, saying here that he bit off more than he could chew with the Fantastic Four. And look, when you go from doing a small, I think it was a $27 million budgeted Chronicle, to getting something like Fantastic Four, rebooting that franchise for Fox, there's a lot more that goes along with it. It's not just you and your friends making a movie in South Africa, which is where they shot it. This is something that now has committees and responsibilities and executives and all sorts of things that are just going to be like a lot to handle, and not everyone can make it. So it says here, in a recent career retrospective posted on Polygon, Trank admitted that as a relative Hollywood outsider, he had been way in over his head. When he was hired to direct the 2015 reboot of Fantastic Four, his first big studio picture came with responsibilities and protocols he hadn't anticipated. And the detail-minded directors who found himself clashing with everybody from animatic artists to his stars, attempting to help guide him through the process was Simon Kinberg, who had been a longtime producer and writer on the X-Men franchise. But in the middle of production, Kinberg helped hook Trank up with another gig that would throw Fantastic Four's production into further turmoil. And that's because at the time, he was actually a consultant for Lucasfilm. And if you go back and you watch Star Wars Rebels, which premiered in 2014, Kinberg's name is all over that. I'm rewatching Rebels right now, and Kinberg's name is all over that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now it says here, he informed Trank that the studio executives were interested in hearing his pitch for one of the spin-off films they had been planning. Given only a few days to consider the offer, Trank resolved to take the job after coming up with a rough story for Boba Fett. Kathy Kennedy announced that Trank was the newest addition to the Star Wars family in the middle of Fantastic Four's production. However, after pulling double duty on Fantastic Four and Boba Fett for the next year, and with unrelated personal issues piling up on him, Trank began to read the writing on the wall. Now, there's been stories about Josh Trank and how he acted on the set of Fantastic Four. They don't really talk about this here, or how he treated the rental property in Louisiana where they shot the film. So that's not talked about here. That's definitely some crazy stuff. But it goes on to say here that after the initial cut of Fantastic Four left the Fox brass scratching their heads, the film was essentially hijacked by company executives, sending Fantastic Four's impending failure, which would go on to become the stuff of legend. Trank decided to cut his losses and step away from any directorial responsibilities, lest history be repeated with the future project, saying at the time he chalked up his Lucasfilm exit to a desire to do something original that was below the radar. And today he says it's a different explanation. He says, I quit the film because I knew I was going to get fired if I didn't quit. And look, I would like to sit there and think that Hollywood doesn't work that way, that it doesn't, that you're only as good as your last project, and that getting help, is not getting allowed to continue working when something as bad as Fantastic Four happens, probably would hopefully be a thing. The truth of the matter is not. At the time, they were still in a good PR space. At the time, when 2015, we hadn't even come upon the release yet of a Force Awakens or anything with Rogue One. So they were still in this phase of moving things around. And no, he figured out he was going to be fired if he didn't quit. And the truth is, I agree with him. I think he does. Now it says here, after that double dose of failure in the blockbuster realm, Trank was despondent for some time, saying, "I have been exposed to a permanent vision of reality where I had no reason to live because there was nothing I desired. I didn't want to be a big filmmaker anymore. That's all I ever wanted. I didn't know what I was anymore." And you know what? That's, I know a lot of people who do YouTube who feel the exact same way. Fame in that kind of area can get to you, can really drag you down, especially if there's mistakes made along the way, which is something that, Trank probably did do. And as we're seeing here, he realized that it's better to quit than to be fired. But by not coming out and saying that he quit the project for these reasons until nearly 5 years later, there has been a narrative that has been set where people do believe that he was fired by Kinberg and Kathy Kennedy, that he just screwed everything up with Fantastic Four, and that it's all his fault. But if you really do look at the production of Fantastic Four, you can see that the executives at Fox came in and they're the ones who kind of cobbled this movie together. And the thing is, he tried to defend himself. On the day Fantastic Four came out, he tweeted out that this wasn't the movie he wanted to make, and that was seen as a devastating blow. That was seen as an absolutely devastating blow to the film, where the director came out and basically denounced the movie the day before it came out, or the day that it came out. It went on to gross just absurdly low amounts of cash, and the movie was bad. I didn't see it till it hit home video, but I finally watched it, and it was not good. And I think a lot of people, I don't know if I'd say myself entirely because I'd been following a bit of the saga online, but a lot of people took that and blamed Trank for all of it. And that set him back by a number of years. So now he's working on a new one called Capone with Tom Hardy. It's a smaller film that's going to be coming out to VOD here in the next couple of days. I'll definitely give it a watch and see what the whole thing's about. But I feel bad for the guy. I do. I feel bad for the guy. And this goes to show you, I think one of the bigger problems with the studio system and how it tries to incorporate the younger indie filmmaker types. Because, that's how it always is, right? Colin Trevorrow going over to Universal to do Jurassic World after doing Safety Not Guaranteed. He did this little low budget movie that was good. It's actually really good. I saw it in theaters when it came out. I really loved it. And then he got picked by Spielberg to reboot the Jurassic Park franchise. It went on to do $1.5 billion, grossing more money in 2015 than Avengers Age of Ultron, which then put Trevorrow on the top of the world. And so what happened after that? He got hired for episode 9. He got hired to go and do, he was going to do that one over doing the next Jurassic Park movie. And then he did his own film, a little follow-up, passion project called The Book of Henry, that just crashed and burned at the box office. Absolutely crashed and burned. And as a result of that, he left working on episode 9 and ended up going back over to Universal to handle Jurassic World, because they at least thought, hey, listen, this is one this is one you get, and you can work on this. He actually got lucky. Affleck, kind of similar boat, but not as lucky, not right now at least. He was working on, he did Argo won Best Picture. Then they wanted him to do The Batman after signing on to become Batman. And then he couldn't crack that nut. He had a bunch of personal problems pile up on him. He ended up walking away from it because he thought it would kill him if he did it. And then after Argo did well, remember Warner's gave him I think it was like $75 million to do Live by Night, a passion project for him that came out in January of 2018. It crashed, it burned, and now we're not hearing anything about Affleck directing, even though he is one of the better directors working today and should be making a lot more movies. This sort of thing happens in Hollywood quite often. There are a great deal of responsibilities put on to these directors, put on to these people that are now, instead of working on trying to create a project, a single movie, they're now being part of a larger franchise. They're not being given the opportunity and time to plan because they have to meet a certain expected release date, and that requires them to take shortcuts. And in the case of maybe Scott Derrickson with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, for you know, phase 5 at Marvel, he left the project because of creative differences. And he had said on Twitter that a lot of it had to do with that forced release date that they wanted him to hit. And now they're bringing in Sam Raimi as a ringer, but now because of everything, they pushed the movie back by a number of months. If Derrickson would have just waited, if he just would have held on a little bit longer, he could have rode this wave to get that extra 6 months that he wanted. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But it does go to show you that the studio system where we are right now is not about genre movie. They are about genre films. They're not about singular pictures as much anymore, despite what they'll tell you. This is where we find ourselves. And so because of that corporate pressure, it burns out a lot of directors because they're fighting back against the machine. And when you put an artist next to a machine, the machine always seems to win, because in this particular case, the machine is the one that's absolutely holding the cards. But anyway, I do want to hear your thoughts on this one. I want to hear your opinions and your perspectives. Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you guys about this all later. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.